India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Funeral services for President Raisi and Foreign Minister continue in Iran. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar to represent country at Raisi's funeral. US hints at sanctions for International Criminal Court over Israel warrants. Fighting continues in Gaza's Jabalia and Rafah. And campaigning for the remaining two phases of India's general polls in full throttle, leaders to hold rallies to woo the voters. Well, thousands of Iranians have gathered on the streets of Tehran to mourn President Ebrahim Raisi after he died in a helicopter crash. The mortal remains of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi and Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian arrived in Tehran on Tuesday. Soldiers were seen carrying the coffin of the late Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi during his funeral procession. The mortal remains of the two leaders will remain in the capital until Wednesday. Ceremonies will be held across the country before Raisi's mortal remains is buried in the northeastern city of Mashhad on Tuesday. On Thursday, President Raisi and 7 others were killed when a helicopter they were traveling in crashed in a mountainous area of Iran on Sunday. And India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar will represent India's visit to Iran on 22nd May to pay condolences on the tragic demise of the President, Dr. Syed Ebrahim Raisi, and Foreign Minister Dr. Hussein Amir Abdullahian and other Iranian officials in an unfortunate helicopter crash on the 19th of May 2024. On Tuesday, India declared a day of official mourning in honor of Raisi. President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have conveyed their condolences to the government and people of Iran. And the death of Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi leaves Tehran's power brokers with new decisions to make. Not just who to support as the next president, but who should replace Iran's supreme leader when he dies. That's because Raisi was the one most analysts believed would be trusted to hold Iran's top job. Stuart Smith has more on where the frontrunner's sudden death leaves those succession plans.
Iran's supreme leader is the country's most powerful job. He controls the armed forces and directs foreign policy. Raisi was most often cited as the nation's most likely successor when Khamenei dies. The supreme leader talked favourably of him, and he himself, like Raisi, was president before taking on the top role. Now that plan, if indeed it ever was the preferred course of action, is dashed. Academics and experts are divided on who the next most likely candidate is. Frequently suggested is Khamenei's second son, a mid-ranking cleric called Mujtabor. But modern Iran has a history of rejecting hereditary rule. The Islamic Republic was founded in opposition to the monarchy that preceded it, and those close to Khamenei suspect he's against taking the country back to any system that resembles that. But historically, Iran is used to hereditary rule, and it's not uncommon in the region, prompting some academics to conclude expectations of resistance to such a move are overblown. Khamenei's son, Mujtabor, comes free of the unpopularity that started to be associated with Raisi due to his handling of COVID-19, the sanctions, corruption and repression. But Iran watchers suggest the fact he is largely unknown by citizens and that his popularity has never been tested means an appearance of authentic support may be hard for him to develop. Either way, Raisi's death means the restart of political power games amongst Iran's ultra-conservative hardliners, not just for the presidency, but the eventual supreme leader as well. Stuart Smith in Baghdad, reporting for DD India.
An update on Israel-Hamas conflict now. Fighting has been raging around the far southern city of Rafah, the last area to face a ground operation. Fierce combat has also been reported again in the northern Jabalia area, where Hamas forces have regrouped. Israel said it has returned to North Gaza, where it had claimed to have dismantled Hamas months ago to prevent the terrorist group that controls Gaza from regrouping. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has suggested he will work with lawmakers on potential sanctions against the International Criminal Court as its prosecutor seeks arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials. Blinken told a congressional hearing that he was committed to taking action against a profoundly wrong-headed decision. His comments come amid a Republican push to impose sanctions on ICC officials, which may see a vote as soon as this week. The United States is not a member of the court but has backed previous prosecutions, including the ICC's arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin over Russia-Ukraine conflict. And the head of the World Health Organization called on Tuesday for Israel to lift restrictions on aid into Gaza, saying that the primary pipeline for emergency medical aid into the enclave from Egypt had been cut off.
Crossings from Egypt into Gaza have remained closed for 2 weeks, cutting off the primary pipeline for emergency health supplies into Gaza. All over Gaza, the impact of incursions and evacuation orders are being felt. We urge Israel to lift the blockade and to let aid through. WHO has prepositioned some supplies in warehouses and hospitals, but without more aid flowing into Gaza, we cannot sustain our life-saving support to hospitals and the population.
Well, the United Nations has planned new routes within the Gaza to transport aid from a U.S.-built floating pier after crowds intercepted 11 trucks, causing a halt to deliveries that continued for a third day on Tuesday. Operations began on last Friday, and 10 aid trucks were driven by UN contractors to a World Food Programme warehouse in Dar el-Bala in Gaza. But on Saturday, only 5 trucks made it to the warehouse after 11 others were intercepted. According to the World Food Programme, distribution of aid was paused as the UN planned new routes and coordination of deliveries in a bid to prevent more aid being intercepted. Well, the Pentagon has meanwhile said that new routes for the movement of aid in Gaza had been created after some aid trucks had been intercepted by crowds, adding that aid was now moving from assembly areas to warehouses in Gaza.
Aid will be delivered to the floating pier, then transported via logistic support vessels, delivered to the causeway, and then put into assembly areas on shore. And that's where NGOs pick up that aid and then further distribute it. So to my knowledge, there's no stoppage. Again, as we mentioned, this is going to be a crawl, walk, run approach, and you're going to see those numbers increase in the days ahead.
Well, France has backed the International Criminal Court in the fight against impunity. It comes after the court's prosecutor sought an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas leaders for alleged war crimes. DD India's correspondent Aros Cullen reports for more from Paris.
Well, after the announcement by the International Criminal Court in The Hague, France gave an interesting response. It released a statement from its foreign ministry, and I'll read you just a little bit of what that said now. France condemned the anti-Semitic massacres perpetrated by Hamas. This terrorist group has claimed responsibility for barbaric attacks against civilians, acts of torture and sexual violence, which Hamas itself has documented, broadcasted and celebrated. Then the statement went on to say that concerning Israel, France has been warning for many months about the imperative of strict compliance with international humanitarian law, and in particular about the unacceptable nature of civilian losses in the Gaza Strip and insufficient humanitarian access. France supports the International Criminal Court, its independence and the fight against impunity in all situations. Now you contrast that response with the reaction from the United States. President Joe Biden said it was outrageous, the announcement from the International Criminal Court. There are areas where allies like Paris and Washington are working together, for example, on the need to get urgent humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. But this does also point out that concerning the Middle East situation, there are also differences between some of Israel's allies. Ross Cullen in Paris, reporting for DD India.
Well, the prosecution and defense have both arrested their case in Donald Trump's hush money trial, marking the beginning of the final stages of the historic case. Closing arguments are set to take place next Tuesday, and then the jury will be out for deliberation. The former president did not take the stand in his own defense, despite repeatedly saying he would so. He has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony charges. DD India's Sally Patterson has more from New York.
Well, the jury has been dismissed for now in this historic hush money trial in New York City. They've been told to come back next week when the fate of former President Donald Trump will be in their hands. On Tuesday, we saw the final witness take the stand. That was Robert Costello, a lawyer who at one time advised Michael Cohen, a key witness in this case. It was the second day of testimony from Costello, and on Monday he found himself at the receiving end of Judge Juan Merchan's scolding, because the judge said he had rolled his eyes and muttered under his breath. Behavior, the judge said, was unacceptable. In fact, the judge told him, "I'd like to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom. You don't give me the side eye and you don't roll your eyes. Do you understand that?" Well, better behavior from that lawyer on Tuesday, who was the defense's final witness. Then the defense rested its case, just as the prosecution had done earlier this week. The defense only brought 2 witnesses into this trial. The prosecution brought 20. Those included Michael Cohen himself. He's the one who alleges that Donald Trump knew all about the $130,000 payment made to Stormy Daniels, an adult film star, ahead of the 2016 presidential election to keep quiet about an affair she said she had with the former president. Trump has always denied that ever took place. We also heard from Daniels herself. She talked the jury through, sometimes in quite graphic detail, a sexual encounter she said she had with him back in 2006 in a Lake Tahoe hotel room. Again, he denied that ever took place. Now the jury has to weigh up the arguments on both sides of this historic case. It's the first criminal trial against a US president in history. And then they'll decide unanimously which way they are going to lean. Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts. He continues to call this a witch hunt, politically motivated, a scam, a sham, being orchestrated by his political opponents to try and keep him off the campaign trail and inside a courtroom instead. In New York, I'm Sally Patterson, reporting for DD India.
And updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Russia's defense ministry said its forces had captured Bilohorivka, a rural settlement in Ukraine's eastern Luhansk region. But Kyiv has said it managed to repel Russian forces from the area. The conflicting reports come amid Russia stepping up its effort to overstretch Ukraine's depleted resources by attacking from multiple directions, including from a new war front in the country's northeast Kharkiv region. Megumi Lim has more from Kyiv.
The settlement of Bilohorivka, which Russia claims to have captured on Monday, is located about 60 kilometers from Slavyansk and about 75 kilometers from Kramatorsk in the east, both key military hubs for Ukraine in the ongoing war and the last strongholds held by Kyiv in the Donetsk region, which is partially occupied by Russia. Ukraine's general staff said this week fighting was going on around Bilohorivka, but added that its forces had repelled 3 attacks in the nearby Siversk sector. Russia has been trying to capture the remaining territories controlled by Ukraine in the 4 regions Moscow claimed to have annexed in September of last year, the Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Its offensive operations have opened up a 1,000-kilometer long front line that stretches from north to south in eastern Ukraine. Russian forces, taking advantage of Kyiv's depleted troops and resources, opened up a new war front last week by mounting a ground incursion into the northeast Kharkiv region, further expanding the front line. So far, more than 8,000 civilians have evacuated from the area. But additional military aid from the United States have reached Ukrainian troops, and President Volodymyr Zelensky described the battlefield situation on Monday as under control. He also said last week that for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion, no brigade reported a lack of artillery shells. But Ukraine's border guard service warns a Russian attack farther north in the Sumy region cannot be ruled out. Ukrainian military officials have been monitoring a buildup of Russian troops on the border that could potentially lead to another military offensive. I'm Megumi Lim in Kiev reporting for DD India.
And even as the armed forces struggle with aging equipment, a shortage of manpower and ambitions for a greater regional role, New Zealand's Conservative government will cut military spending by 6.6%. The new budget to be presented on May 30th would put New Zealand's defence spending at 0.9% of GDP, down from 1% in the current year. The cuts come as recent government reports have warned about old equipment and the military has struggled to hire and retain personnel. Alongside those challenges, the government wants to improve the state of the country's armed forces and take on more regional and global missions, as well as investigate a bid to join the Defence Pact. The cuts put New Zealand at odds with many of its traditional partners, such as Australia and Japan, which are ramping on spending in response to China's growing military presence in the region. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Seoul AI Summit opens with companies pledging to develop AI safely. French President Emmanuel Macron heads to riot-hit New Caledonia after riots erupted in the French overseas territory. And another star added to Madame Tussauds London as it unveils the first ever wax figure of famous actor Timothée Chalamet.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
We are in Assam. This is the tea city of India.
From down south, Tamil Nadu.
Discover the colors of democracy.
Gateway to northeast of India.
Coastal state of Kerala. Watch Poll Pulse on DT India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on, a group of South Korean and global tech companies adopted a joint pledge on Wednesday, vowing to responsibly develop and use artificial intelligence and to address social challenges with the technology. The Seoul AI Business Pledge was announced by 14 companies, including Korea's Samsung Electronics Company, Naver Corp, Kakao Corporation and Keytech Corporation, as well as global big tech companies such as Google, OpenAI and IBM during the opening ceremony of the AI Global Forum in Seoul. The AI Global Forum is part of the two-day AI Seoul Summit co-hosted by South Korea and Britain as a follow-up to last year's inaugural Global AI Safety Summit, where the first global guidelines on AI safety were adopted. And India's Laura Westbrook joins us for more from Hong Kong. Well, Laura, in the current scenario, if you talk about when the breakneck pace of artificial intelligence innovation leaves most of the governments scrambling to keep up, what has happened, has transpired in the summit?
Yes. As you said, governments are really scrambling to try and keep up with this cutting-edge technology that just seems to be developing at this breakneck pace. On the first day of this summit in Seoul, world leaders agreed to develop a series of safety institutes to research and test this technology. And AI firms also pledged to develop AI safely. Companies such as Google, OpenAI, Meta, as well as some Chinese firms agreed to these voluntary safety commitments to be more transparent, to be accountable, and in some rare cases, pull the plug on cutting-edge technology if they can't mitigate the risks. And world leaders from 10 countries, as well as the European Union, also agreed to create a common understanding and work together to research artificial intelligence as well. The UN Security General told the opening session of this summit that artificial intelligence is life-changing, but it's also life-threatening. And he says that there is a need to create these guardrails to mitigate these risks and to have more dialogue as well.
All right. Also, Laura, how has this summit basically built on the commitments from the companies looking at how the AI safety institutes will work together?
Yes, I mean, companies have come together to make these voluntary commitments, and this does build on this summit that just took place 6 months ago. So that just gives you an idea at how the world is trying to scramble to keep up with how fast this technology is changing. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and South Korean President said they wanted to create this summit to bridge some of the differences, to bring world leaders, tech leaders together to try and come up with an understanding and framework to work within. Some of the leaders that have attended are leaders from the world's 7 democracies, such as Japan, Canada, and we also have heard from the South Koreans that they have invited a Chinese representative to attend that in-person ministerial summit on Wednesday. And to give you an idea of how important this is for the world, a global AI safety report, which was backed by 30 countries, said that some of the potential risks were large market impacts, AI-enabled hacking, and even biological attacks. And that's on top of privacy concerns, not to mention the environmental impact of how much electricity that these AI data centers use. So some really big issues that they need to develop and solve. As the South Korean president says, that the world now is hyper-connected, and so there is a need to, and that transcends borders. So there is a need to come together to try and solve this, and that is what they are aiming to do on the second day of this summit.
All right, rightly said. The world is hyper-connected. Thank you so much, Laura, for that update from there. And moving on, the European Union has passed a historic law regulating artificial intelligence. The AI Act will be rolled out in stages and could result in huge fines for companies that don't comply. Did India's Alex Cardier reports for more from Brussels.
Well, this is certainly a historic moment, a moment where the European Union and European governments are trying to keep up with this rapidly evolving technology. It is the first legislation of its kind globally when it comes to regulating AI technology. It will kick in, or at least the first phases of this legislation will kick in about a month's time. It is the first of its kind. It is also concerned about combating misinformation, combating other misuse of data by large AI models. So there will be obligations on transparency, on risk management, particularly for those high-risk AI systems. When it comes to governments, however, it will also restrict their ability to use real-time biometric surveillance powered by AI. All of these things will be rolled out slowly, but nevertheless it is a historic landmark legislation, one that many experts think may have a knock-on effect around the world, because those tech companies, in trying to comply with the EU's AI Act, may change their processes around the world. And this act is also seen as a blueprint, as a starting draft for other countries like India, like China, the United States, who are trying to figure out the level of legislation they want for AI technology. Maybe they will take inspiration from the EU's AI Act. They can really show their teeth in the European Commission if they want to. They can fine companies up to 7% of global annual turnover for non-compliance of the AI Act. That would be quite an extreme case, but certainly that is the EU's way of showing that they mean business when it comes to this regulation. Now, there has been pushback from some tech companies saying that the burdens of this legislation, the liabilities, the costs of compliance will make it difficult, more difficult to invest in new technology, in research, in innovation, make it more difficult for European companies to compete with their US or Indian counterparts, for example. But certainly what is clear is that irrespective of how this rolls out in the next few months, it is a historic piece of legislation regulating AI in the European Union. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
All right, moving on, the French president is visiting New Caledonia as unrest continues on the French Pacific island. The French territory has suffered more than a week of riots and violence over plans to impose new voting rules. The unrest has left 6 people dead, including 2 police, and hundreds injured. DD India correspondent Ross Cullen reports for more from Paris.
The French government says that Emmanuel Macron's trip to New Caledonia is to be able to install a mission, also hoping to have dialogue and also support the restoration of order, because the French state does still not have full control over the island, the overseas territory in the Pacific Ocean, since rioting broke out more than a week ago. Travelling with the president, the Defence Minister Sébastien Lecornu and the Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin, and on Tuesday, before he left, Mr. Darmanin said that 4 more planes over the next 48 hours would be arriving in New Caledonia with 3,000 more security personnel to try to boost efforts to protect public buildings, to regain control of roads at the ports and the airports. It's been a mixture of the police and the military doing that job so far. Some 250 people have been arrested for rioting. We know that 400 businesses and shops have been damaged in the civil unrest, mostly by fire. Some 150 shops have had their stocks looted as well. Evacuation flights did take off on Tuesday, destined for Australia and New Zealand, but the airport is not yet open to commercial flights, and there will be hopes that the presence of the President Emmanuel Macron on the island can hope to facilitate dialogue and a restoration of order. Ross Cullen in Paris, reporting for DD India.
Well, Russian forces have started the first stage of exercises ordered by President Vladimir Putin to simulate preparation for the launch of tactical nuclear weapons. The drills involve missile forces in Russia's southern military district, which lies adjacent to Ukraine and also includes part of Ukraine that Russia now controls. The Defense Ministry said the first stage of the exercise involved Iskander and Kinzhal missiles. The Defense Ministry in a statement said that the exercise is aimed at ensuring that units and equipment are ready for the combat use of non-strategic nuclear weapons to respond and unconditionally ensure the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the Russian state in response to provocative statements and threats of individual Western officials against the Russian Federation. And in Nigeria, at least 22 people kidnapped by gunmen from the suburban Dawaki district of Abuja were rescued on Tuesday. Kidnapping for ransom is rife in Nigeria as roving gangs of armed men target people in remote areas, highways and schools. While there have been a few attacks and kidnappings around Abuja in recent years, the incidents have been largely consigned to the outskirts of the city where security is lax. And the Cannes Film Festival heated up on Tuesday as the Olympic flame arrived at the red carpet. French athletes carried the Olympic torch up the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival. Festival President Iris Knobloch and director Thierry Fremaux greeted the athletes. The athletes and sports personalities were on hand to view Michael Gamrasny's documentary Olympics. The flame, which is on preview to the festival, will return to Cannes on June 8th ahead of the start of the Summer Games in Paris, which run from July 26th until August 11th. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. A video portal linking a street in New York's Flatiron district to central Dublin reopens after being fitted with sensors. This innovative installation features a large circular screen at each location, which displays a live video feed from the corresponding site, allowing pedestrians in both cities to interact with each other in real time. The portal is part of the broader effort to use technology to connect people and create unique shared urban experiences. An outbreak of severe storm leaves behind a trail of shattered homes and farms near Nebraska, United States. The station reported storm chasers had witnessed at least 2 tornadoes generated by a severe storm system that rolled through United States. Several homes sustained serious damage from a tornado that struck near the rural community on the outskirts of Nebraska City. Stranded for nearly 3 weeks by record flooding in southern Brazil, indigenous communities resist government calls to evacuate from sacred ancestral lands. Heavy rains have battered Rio Grande do Sul since late April, causing historic floods that have killed over 160 people. Madame Tussauds London unveils the first ever wax figure of famous actor Timothée Chalamet. The famed museum and tourist attraction says it took expert artists 9 months to create the figure. The 28-year-old American-French actor, who shot to fame for his varied roles in films including Little Women and Dune, is known for his edgy red carpet style. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Campaigning in full swing for Phase 6 of India's general polls, PM Modi to hold public rally in Uttar Pradesh and Delhi. We'll tell you how social media is impacting the political landscape as elections are in full swing. And we pay tribute to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, considered father of modern Indian Renaissance, on his birth anniversary today.
We are in Cannes, the famous city on the French Riviera. The 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is here. So soak into 12 days of world cinema and the hottest fashion trends. The famous 24 steps leading to the Palais des Festivals, where most of the cinema at this festival is screened, are beckoning. Join me, Munmun Bhattacharya, as I take you through all the buzz around the festival and on India's participation in it, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Funeral services for President Raisi and Foreign Minister continue in Iran. India's Vice President Jagdeep Thankar to represent country at Raisi's funeral. US hints at sanctions for International Criminal Court over Israel. Warrants. Fighting continues in Gaza's Jabalia and Rafah. And campaigning for the remaining 2 phases of India's general polls in full throttle, leaders to hold rallies to woo the voters. And now let's get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Well, the 6th phase of the general polls is all set to take place on the 25th of May in 57 constituencies. The 6th phase will cover 7 states and union territories. In this phase, a total of 889 candidates are in fray. In this phase, polling will also be conducted in Jammu and Kashmir's Anantnag-Rajouri Lok Sabha constituency. Last month, the Election Commission of India revised the polling date in the Anantnag-Rajouri Lok Sabha seat from the 7th of May to 25th of May due to logistical, communication and natural barriers related to connectivity. The counting of votes for all polls will be done on the 4th of June. While campaigning for the 6th phase of general elections has gained momentum, political parties get up to woo voters in their respective favours. BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Uttar Pradesh, where he will be holding rallies in Basti and Shravasti district. Later in the day, Prime Minister to hold public meeting in Dwarka district of the national capital, Delhi. Senior BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah to visit West Bengal today, where he will be campaigning for the party's candidates in Kanti, Ghatal, Purulia and Bankura districts of the state. Senior BJP leader and Union Minister Rajnath Singh will be holding public meetings in Haryana's Karnal, Kaithal and Bhiwani. Bharatiya Janata Party National President JP Nadda to also hold 2 election rallies in West Bengal. Meanwhile, in order to garner support in party's favour, opposition also holding elections campaigning across the states to woo the voters. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi to hold public meetings in Mahendragarh and Sonipat district of Haryana. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor to hold press conference on important issues in connection with the Lok Sabha elections in Delhi. And in India correspondent Amritpal Singh from Ambala in Haryana and Debyendu Mondal from Tamluk in West Bengal joins us for more. Well, Amrit, good morning. My first question to you. 10 constituencies goes to polls in Haryana in the 6th phase. Each of these areas represent unique demographics and concern. How do you see the political landscape shaping up there?
Lipakshi, you rightly said there are 10 constituencies in Haryana. The last time around in 2019, the BJP had swept, it was a clean sweep for the BJP. It took all the 10 constituencies. It polled about 58% of the vote. Now the political landscape this time around is that essentially it's a fight between the Congress and the BJP. While the BJP is trying to hold its grip or maintain its grip on the state, the Congress is fighting for its revival. There are 2 other parties, the INLD, the Indian National Lok Dal, that is former Deputy Prime Minister Chaudhry Devilal's party. His son Om Prakash Chautala was the Chief Minister here. It was a significant force, but the last time around they just got 2% of the vote. One of the grandsons of Om Prakash Chautala floated his own party, the JJP or the Jan Nayak Janata Party, which was a coalition partner of the BJP in the state. And also a part of the NDA, but then they broke away given the anti-farmer sentiment against the BJP. Now what the BJP is battling in the Jatland is an anti-farmer sentiment because it's perceived that they did not give a legal guarantee on the minimum support price or the MSP for crops. The Congress is fighting for its revival. So the INLD and the JJP are players. The BSP is also fielded candidates, but they are smaller players. So it's mainly a contest between the BJP and the Congress. The BJP has been in power in the state for the past 10 years, but they are also fighting anti-incumbency. Remember, Manohar Lal Khattar, the Chief Minister, had to be now he's a former Chief Minister and a Lok Sabha candidate from Karnal. He had to be replaced in March this year with Naib Singh Sani, who belongs to an OBC caste, and the OBCs also have a significant 40% part of the electorate. So it is primarily a contest between these 2 parties. Right. So that's what the political landscape here is, Lipakshi.
All right. My second question to you, Debyendu. Important rallies in the state today in West Bengal. How intense do you see the battle in this phase there?
Good morning, Lepakshi. Of course, the battle in Bengal is, of course, very intense. Given the fact the political stakes for both the BJP as well as the Trinamool Congress is very high. Here it's perhaps a direct contest between both the parties, the BJP and the Trinamool Congress here in West Bengal. We are at the Tamluk Lok Sabha constituency, which is considered to be the bastion of the Adhikaris. Shishir Adhikari, the father of Shubhendu Adhikari, who is currently the leader of opposition in the West Bengal Legislative Assembly, have been a 3-time MP from here. His son Shomendhu Adhikari is contesting from the nearby Lok Sabha constituency, the Kathi Lok Sabha constituency, and Shubhendu Adhikari's this Tamluk Lok Sabha, which is also the hometown of the leader of the opposition and senior BJP leader from West Bengal, Shubhendu Adhikari. A former retired judge of the Calcutta High Court, Justice Abhijit Gangapathy, is contesting here against the Trinamool Congress's young face, which is Debangshu Bhattacharya. So, of course, but why this seat is important is also because the fact that the BJP has trusted this seat with this former Calcutta High Court judge who had brought out the alleged corruption in the recruitment scam, in the teachers' recruitment scam here in West Bengal, due to which the former education minister of West Bengal, Partho Chatterjee, has been in jail for over 8 months now. So, of course, and the TMC's chief, Mamata Banerjee, also the chief minister of West Bengal, wants to avenge her defeat which she faced from this particular constituency here in West Bengal's Tomluk, which also has the Nandigram Assembly constituency where Mamata Banerjee was defeated for the first time by Shubhendu Adhikari in his home turf. So, of course, the contest here is very, very interesting and very high for both the Trinamool Congress as well as the BJP. Yes. But as far as the campaigning by senior top leaders of the BJP goes, who have been flying in from Delhi to campaign for the parties, of course, shows the importance of how much important the politics of West Bengal is for the BJP. Right. We have seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi holding multiple rallies here in West Bengal. He was also in Jhargram. He was also in Midnapur. This is Purbo Midnapur, which is East Midnapur. The Prime Minister campaigned in Jhargram, another neighboring district from here. He will also be campaigning in Bankura, Bishnupur. So, of course, you see the lineup of political campaigns by the top leaders, that is right from the Prime Minister to the Home Minister and other senior leaders, including the BJP National President JP Nadda here in Bengal, gives us perhaps a testimony of the fact that how important BJP considers this political turf for itself, and is hoping to win about 25 odd seats from here out of the 42 Lok Sabha seats that goes to poll in Bengal. Back to you, Lipakshi.
All right. Thank you so much, Devendu and Amrit, for all that information from there. And moving on, in the 6th phase of Lok Sabha elections, UP's 14 constituencies will go to poll on 25th of May. And one of the most important constituency is Azamgarh, the eastern part of UP, which was earlier known mostly for criminal activities. But now the picture is changing and the people there want to see more positive changes happening. DD India's Deepika Meheto sends us this report from Ground Zero. Take a look.
Azamgarh is one of the most important constituencies out of the 80 different constituencies spread across Uttar Pradesh. This eastern part of UP, Azamgarh, will go to polls on the 25th of May in the 6th phase of the general elections, the Lok Sabha elections of India. Now, what makes it so important is the fight between BJP and the BSP, and also the kind of voters we have here. There are around 80% voters which are rural voters here, and the rest are the urban voters. But at the same time, it is also interesting to see if the voters are really excited to come out and vote come the 25th of May in the 6th phase of the general elections. Let's figure out.
पहले मतदान फिर जलपान, पहले मतदान फिर जलपान.
The Azamgarh Lok Sabha constituency, dominated by the Yadavs, has been a pivotal battleground in the eastern region of Uttar Pradesh. From development to women's security, many issues keep picking up pace here as and when the elections take place. But what is more interesting to see is that with every Lok Sabha elections, the excitement of the voters keeps amping up as well. Team DD India understands the pulse of the voters. We spoke with a group of men who came all the way from Rajasthan to spread awareness about voting in Azamgarh.
हम यहाँ की आम जनता को जागृत करने के लिए आए हैं और उनसे निवेदन करने के लिए आए हैं कि आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा मतदान करें, ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा मतदान होगा तो जो ही ज़्यादा मतदान होगा तो एक अच्छा जनप्रतिनिधि निकल करके आएगा.
While people are coming from across India to spread voting awareness, the youth of Azamgarh says that they want to see job opportunities, better facilities and infrastructure in the region.
हम चाहते हैं कि यहाँ पर फैक्ट्रियाँ खुलें, यहाँ पर बड़े-बड़े स्टेडियम बने. जो युवा हैं कसरत करते हैं या फौज में जाना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए भी विद्यालय की स्थापना हो और युवा के भविष्य का निर्माण होगा तो समझिए कि देश के भविष्य का निर्माण होगा.
The temperature is soaring here hour by hour in Azamgarh, but nothing is dampening the spirit of the voters. We spoke to a group of women who said that the picture has changed here in Azamgarh and women feel safe.
बहुत बदलाव देखे हैं. महिलाएं सुरक्षित नहीं थी, बहुत ज़्यादा गुंडागर्दी थी सपा और बसपा के राज में. लेकिन पूज्य आदित्यनाथ योगी जी महाराज जब से आए हैं तब से हम महिलाओं को काफ़ी सुरक्षा मिली है और हमारी बेटियां भी पढ़ पाती हैं।
So there you heard those vibrant ladies, those beautiful ladies who've come here in this peak afternoon. It is really hot in Azamgarh, but they are all excited. Nothing is beating their enthusiasm because they want to go and vote on the 25th of May. They do understand the importance of vote and they want to see development as the main agenda here in Azamgarh of Uttar Pradesh. With camera person Sanjeev, this is Deepika reporting for DD India.
Well, as India progresses to its voting process, the impact of social media on its political landscape is more evident than ever. Ayushi Ahuja brings us a special report on how these digital dynamics are shaping the future of our democracy.
As India is halfway to its voting process, the digital battleground continues. Social media platforms have become a new frontier for political warfare, where every like, share and comment holds the potential to sway political opinion of the voter. Social media has transformed the political landscape, with parties and candidates battling for online supremacy. From targeted advertisements to viral content, every aspect is meticulously crafted to sway voter sentiments. But what impact does this have on electoral outcomes? This is what the voters feel.
On social media, whatever I see, I do tend to believe it, and I see where all of this is leaning towards, and my opinions are also scaled towards that.
Social media surely helps us out in letting us know that who is good, who is bad.
I have heard a campaign going on which is vote ka jawab, jail ka jawab vote se. So I heard it through the social media only.
On one hand, social media has revolutionized the way political parties connect with voters. Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and X, formerly known as Twitter, have become essential tools for campaigning, with parties and candidates leveraging them to spread their message, mobilize support, and discredit opponents.
If I open my Facebook or my Instagram today and I see something inflammatory or maybe even a fake news or a hate speech, and I'm voting in a few hours or the next day or the next week, it will have a direct impact on what I might vote.
If you are going by what people are saying online, then you might not be choosing the right candidates. You might not be going for the right thing because you're just swayed by what people are collectively doing.
If someone is in favor of something, then he will obviously show the good things of them, but then the other side show the bad things of them. So it's difficult to form an opinion.
On the other hand, social media raises concern about misinformation, hate speech, and voter manipulation. Fake news spreads like wildfire, making it challenging to discern fact from fiction. With millions of Indians active on social media, the stakes are high. Social media platforms can make or break a candidate's reputation, with online trends often translating into real-world support. Ultimately, the true impact of social media on election lies in our ability to evaluate information, holds power to account, and upholds the principle of democracy in the digital realm. With camera person Aniket Dubey, I am Ayushi Ahuja reporting for DD India.
Well, May 22nd is celebrated every year as the birth anniversary of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, a crucial figure in the modern Renaissance movement of not only Bengal but the whole India. Let's get to know more about his life of service to humanity. DD India's Jayanti Das has more.
The importance of Raja Ram Mohan Roy in the social and religious reform of modern India is immense. A great scholar, linguist, educationist, reformer and philosopher, Roy was an early skeptic of the orthodox Hindu traditions. Born on May 22, 1772 in Radhanagar, West Bengal, he grew up learning Indian scriptures, but he didn't readily believe all of it. Throughout his life, Roy had an exposure to multiple faiths and religions. Dubbed as a father of the modern Indian Renaissance, he understood that education was crucial to modernize the orthodox thinking among Indians. Roy was against the harmful elements of traditional Hinduism. He strongly protested against two practices in his time: sati, which was the ritual burning of widows upon the funeral pyres of their deceased husbands, and child marriage. This led to the prohibition of sati in 1829. He also fought against untouchability, caste system, and superstitions.
Raja Ram Mohan Roy is known to all of us in India as a great social reformer. He worked for social justice, he worked for women empowerment, equality, improving the status of the women, and also for, removing many social evils of that time.
Roy formed the Brahmo Samaj, a Hindu reformist sect that utilized Unitarian and other liberal Christian elements in its beliefs. In 1828, the Brahmo Samaj, that was against idol worship and believed in the existence of one God, ushered in Bengal Renaissance of the 19th century. Over time, Brahmo Samaj attracted prominent followers like Debendranath Tagore, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and Swami Vivekananda. To honor and further his teachings and ideals, Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation was founded in 1972 by the Government of India. The autonomous body aims at spreading library services across India and promotes accessible education to all.
Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation is meant for strengthening the public libraries and also educating the masses through the public library systems and all. And we have a special concern for the education of the women. We support anything that is required for improving the education in the rural areas and also in the urban India.
On this day, let us remember Raja Ram Mohan Roy's 251st birthday with pride and revitalize his efforts towards the betterment of the Indian society. Jayan Das's report for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Now. Good news in economic front. Reserve Bank of India has estimated GDP growth to be 7% compared with 7.6% in financial year 2024. In a big fight, Rajasthan Royals will take on informed Royal Challengers Bengaluru in eliminator today in Ahmedabad. And first-class experience for the dogs, luxury aircraft to cater dogs of all sizes.
Versus facts. In-depth news and analysis with experts who will help you decide why this election matters. DD India is the main election headquarters with numbers most accurate, data most reliable, and viewership across the platforms. Stay tuned to the Great Indian Election only on weekdays at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Now. Lepakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. There is growing optimism that India is on the cusp of a long-awaited economic takeoff, and its gross domestic product may grow close to 7.5% for the June quarter of the current financial year. The projection in the Reserve Bank of India's May bulletin released on Tuesday was higher than the 7.1% estimated by the Monetary Policy Committee in its statement on April 5th. For the full financial year 2025, the RBI has estimated GDP growth to be 7% compared with 7.6% in financial year 2024. And in sports, two-time champions Kolkata Knight Riders pummeled Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets in the qualifier to waltz into the final of the Indian Premier League on Tuesday. Kolkata romped home with 6.2 overs to spare after unbeaten half-centuries by Venkatesh Iyer and skipper Shreyas Iyer. Hyderabad will get another chance to make Sunday's final when they clash with the winners of Wednesday's eliminator between Rajasthan Royals and Royal Challengers Bengaluru. Also, Rajasthan Royals will take on informed Royal Challengers Bengaluru in eliminator today in Ahmedabad. Few weeks ago, a top-2 finish looked imminent for Rajasthan Royals as the side dominated the first half of the Indian Premier League group stage, but 4 defeats on a trot followed by the abandonment of its last home fixture meant the Royals could eventually feature in the eliminator against Royal Challengers Bengaluru, which comes on the back of the 6 consecutive wins. Well, to lower anxiety and stress among dogs while flying, Bark Air was set for its maiden dog's first flight from New York to Los Angeles. The new airline will transport dogs of all sizes and their people in comfort and in style. Luxuries such as a sunlit waiting lounge filled with treats and toys, speedy check-ins and on-board spa for pups available on board. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.